sorry. The number you have reached is not in service. Please check the number or try your call again. This is a recording.
Are you listening?
Listen to people. Learn what you can.
What is racist and what is just ignorance?
If you've got a friend or an ally or somebody in your corner there to support you, amazing.
I just can't wait for the day where we're no longer pleasantly surprised that someone is LGBT+.
Ask questions on a personal level, do better.
Asking pronouns.
It was like the moment that I realised I was different.
Winning that award topped this year off for me.
Because without you, this world wouldn't be the same.
Are you listening?
Are you listening?
Are you listening?
Are you listening?
Welcome back to Are You Listening, the Oxfordshire Youth Podcast. Are You Listening is a podcast for young people, by young people, to discuss all of the things that they're passionate about. At Oxfordshire Youth, we wanted to make sure that young people had a space to fully express themselves in a way that they felt completely confident about. And that's how this podcast was created. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi everyone, it's Nabila. Before today's episode, I'm just going to go through a few terms that will be mentioned in the episode. The definition of feminism is a movement of equal rights between all genders and the uplifting of women's rights after the history of unjust treatment towards women. The definition of intersectionality is the interconnected identities such as race, class, sexuality that overlap to make you up as a person. The definition of representation is how the media portrays and presents different identities such as religion, sexuality, and gender. The definition of identity politics is the politics in which communities such as race, religions, cultures can make their political policies focused on their identities. The definition of systemic injustice is the rules embedded in organizations that are made to disadvantage and discriminate a community. The definition of activism is different forms of action that take place to make change. Welcome back to Oxfordshire Youth's podcast, Are You Listening? Today we are starting the Activism segment. I'm here with some guests, so we've got three wonderful guests. Maryam, would you like to begin with the introductions, please?
Hi, my name is Maryam. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the creative director of Help the World Oxford. So I do all the creative stuff like making all the artwork, doing anything using artwork to promote activism, to spread awareness. So like the infographics that we use on Instagram, things like that. Our Instagram is, I think it's just Help the World Oxford, all lowercase. It will be linked. We're also on Facebook, Help the World Oxford. So we have that, and we hopefully will make a TikTok soon. That would be good too. But yeah, that's all from me.
Perfect, thank you. And Molly, are you with us?
I'm Molly. My pronouns are she, her, and I am part of the podcast crew on Oxfordshire Youth. Yeah. And I'm really excited to be here and to chat to everyone.
Ah, lovely, thank you so much. And finally, we have Faustine here.
Hey. So I'm Faustine. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a student, a freelance writer, and a campaigner. I focus on kind of like the prevention of violence among young people and also kind of my experiences as a woman of colour living with a disability.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll do a quick introduction of myself. So I'm Nabila Hafiz. That sounds so formal. I'm also part of the Oxfordshire Youth Podcast Committee, as well as Molly. And I'm also the spokeswoman of Help the World Oxford, along with Maryam. And yeah, so I do charity-based work, activist-based work. I do some public speaking. And yeah, I'm 18 and I'm really excited for today's episode where we will be focusing on women's rights and all things great about women, which I will use any excuse to talk about, to be honest. And my pronouns are she, her as well. I'm just going to dive straight in with something that I'm very excited about, which is the fact that we won the Euros yesterday. The women's, the Lionesses, we won the Euros, and I'm so happy about it. How's everyone? Even if you're not a football fan, how are you guys feeling about it?
I can't even catch a ball. I know nothing about sports. But I saw it on everyone's Instagram, and I was like, "Yay, women!" Because the men couldn't do it. That just tells you everything you need to know.
Yes, the men's team are wonderful as well. Very proud.
No, I thought what you were gonna say.
We love both of them, but obviously the women, the Lionesses, were the ones who brought it home.
Sounds better, like Lionesses.
Exactly. Yeah, it's got a ring to it. Anyways, how's everyone else feeling about it?
Oh, it was great to see them celebrating, like their faces when they won it. That was so cool.
So beautiful, right? I was like, I've never seen anything like this before. It was just like, it wasn't a patriotic, I don't want to say patriotic, but just to see women on a pedestal like that was just beautiful. So yeah, that's a really positive way on starting this episode. I'm really happy with that. I have a few questions here, but it's literally informal. It's just a chat, like it's literally just a conversation. So big question, a big movement, feminism, which we know and love, and is very important to women. But my question is, what does feminism mean to you? If you could define feminism. Faustine, would you like to answer first? What your thoughts are? Just what you think about it.
Sure. This is such a big question, friend. This is a big question.
Sorry.
I think this is something I've thought about for a long time. I think especially because I study sociology, we think about these questions a lot, and society is like forever changing. But to me, I'd say that feminism has to have some kind of angle of intersectionality for me to kind of connect to it and feel like I'm included in that as well. So that's just my kind of short take on it.
That's perfect. Yeah, no, I would like to echo that. I think feminism is very important to women with intersectional identities. I feel like perhaps it's been mistranslated a little bit. But yeah, Maryam, what do you think? You're a sociology student at Warwick, aren't you?
I'm also a sociology student. We love sociology. What was I going to say? I kind of agree with Faustine with the kind of intersectional angle of it, because I feel like, I don't know, I can only speak for myself, of course, but as a woman of colour, it can be hard to identify with feminism because you kind of feel alienated from it when you don't see people like yourself being represented, you don't see your issues being talked about. So if anything, feminism would be advocating for people with those intersectional identities who are sometimes triple, or I don't know how to put it, but like have more intersections of social differences, so women of colour, Muslim women of colour, things like that. So for me personally, yeah. Like I said, I think like Faustine said, it's a really big question. Like, because it's so, feminism has so many different angles. It has so many different schools of thought. It's hard to be like, but it's a good question. I think to get you thinking and think, wait, what does this actually mean to me? Like, like not just forget everybody else. What does it mean to me?
No, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I think any woman of any identity or background, feminism and just the uplifting of women, it's different. Everyone experiences it differently. Everyone sees it differently, and it comes up in different points of our lives, like times where we really get, I don't know, not humbled, but you really see it. Some unfortunate times where you're like, wow, I'm really grateful for the movement, or as such. But yeah, Molly, what do you think about where do you see that feminism maybe is a breakthrough for women in any absolutely anything? It's a big question again. Sorry.
No, we're going in for the philosophical ones.
Yeah.
I think that the sort of, I guess, the evolution of feminism is sort of most prominent in the way that it's become so much more intersectional, and like you guys were saying, that's really, really important. If it's not for all women, it's for none. We've sort of seen the movement grow in the past few decades. So we went from women gained the right to vote 1918, and it was only white women over 30 who owned property, and now we're fighting for everyone, and that's really important.
100%. It's really interesting, the evolution, as you were saying, and the timeline of women and our rights. And it's so new. Like, it's so brand new. It feels like we are way, I don't know, it just doesn't, it's unbelievable to me. Like, it's just something, it's very inhumane as to how early this timeline began. But yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think it's a beautiful thing in a way. It is a sad thing as well, as to see the timeline and how slow all the way it began was. But do you know what? We're here. Moving on to something that I find very important is icons. So this can be anyone, literally anyone, like your mum, or I don't know, like a celebrity or something like that. Where have you seen a woman in a place of power in your life? And who's your favorite woman, basically, is what I'm asking.
I was just thinking, I was like, who is it? Because I don't think there's really any celebrity that I'd be like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like, there's, like, maybe there are some ones who are quite good at what they do, but it's not, there's no one like you'd be like, wow, like, you're my icon. There's no one I'd say that to, but someone in my life, I guess, would be my grandma. Because especially I feel like as a child of immigrants, you see the struggle that your parents or your grandparents went through to get to this country and to have a better life for you, and like what they went through, really, the struggles and how hard they fought, and the racism they faced as well in the 60s was horrible. And just all because they wanted a better life for us, away from poverty, and I get a good education, and the way that she's raised my uncles and aunties and my dad, like all of them have degrees and jobs. Like, she pushed them so hard to go to university and have the life that she really couldn't have herself. And even now, she's like, she loves to learn, she loves to read, she loves to find out things, because she wasn't able to do that herself when she was younger, because she was busy raising 4 kids and living in a foreign country. So I guess my grandma would be my inspiration.
Oh, that's really nice. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think this is a really good example of how intersectionality is very important in women and women's rights. As like myself, I'm a British Bengali. That is my identity. Sorry, sometimes you need to think about it. You're like, who am I? Yeah, so I think that is a perfect example of the times when the transition period of the immigration wave in the UK, which was the 60s and 70s. Yeah. But yeah, no, I have similar experiences. Well, not myself, but my family as well. Yeah, Faustine, who would you say is, I think there's like a flow in this conversation, who would you say is your favorite woman? That's the best way I can say it.
I think there's so many like incredible women, both in my life and people I don't necessarily know like firsthand. So again, this is such a big question. But I think kind of an academic and a woman that I really looked up to a lot was Bell Hooks, who sadly passed away last year. She was a professor in the States who wrote a lot about race and feminism and class and how they all kind of interlink to form a bigger picture. Yeah, she had a really good book called Ain't I a Woman, which I think is one of my like staples, and I think everyone should read it, not just young women, but young men too. So that is someone I look up to a lot, and I try and kind of mirror some of what she did in my own practice and my own work.
The wait is finally over. The Youth Awards tickets are finally here, and we cannot wait to see you on the 17th of October at the New Theatre. Head to the New Theatre website to make sure you can get your tickets right now.
In your work, you maybe like not influence, but the way that she wrote, perhaps it's a very like you see it go down like generations and how they work and like the creativity and the essays that you write, simply as that. Like, yeah, I think I'm not in school at the moment, but I'm sure, Molly, are you in? I forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. So Molly, like, do you ever see yourself writing an essay or something and you have that writer or whoever or a professor or anyone that you resonate with, and when you're writing you feel like you think of them, perhaps?
Yeah, definitely. I'm more of like a science student, physics, nuclear physics especially, but I sort of have like two main, I suppose, idols that I try to channel into my work, and that would be Marie Curie and Katherine Johnson. Marie Curie, we know, we love.
We know and love.
She did like a lot of the pioneering work on radioactive elements, and Katherine Johnson was a mathematician at NASA. Single-handedly did all of the coding and calculations in order to get the Americans to the moon, and she wasn't given much credit at all because she was a black woman in the 60s in America, in like the South. And
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, there was like a group of them, but Katherine Johnson was sort of the especially prominent, and she did all of these calculations in her head by hand in the basement of NASA. And Buzz Aldrin said that he trusted no one else. He trusted no computers. If Katherine Johnson didn't work it out, he wasn't getting on that spacecraft.
Wow. See, I didn't know that. That is something that is really good to know. But yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like as us three, we're, young and stuff. So it's important to have like representation really matters. Something that I feel like that phrase is so adamant to. I've seen like a TikTok, I don't know, I think it was like a tweet or something of like a little girl watching the football last night, and like it just every, like, I know there's so many tweets where like, or like Instagram posts where it's like representation really matters, but I always have the same feeling. Like I'm always like, yeah it does. I feel like the funding, this is another thing that I wanted to talk about, the injustices, like where you see women being not like taken seriously, or like an area in literally anything, like schools, in sport, in like the music industry, where you see women being put down or there's underlying like misogyny and sexism. And I know for a fact that is a massive problem in the sports industry with women's sports. For example, like, why are we not funding women to do things? Like, why is the England women's team so underfunded? And you see that everywhere. So I feel like that's something that I've thought about recently, because it's just like, we just won the Euros and everyone raves about it, but it's like, why, like suddenly everyone's so patriotic and it's like, why are you not funding women doing this? Like, it's ridiculous. And you see that in music as well. I know that Taylor Swift, I don't particularly listen to her music, but I know that she's even made loads of music about misogyny and feminism, and how just in her career, how she's been completely shut down for being a woman. I don't know if anyone has anything else to say about like musicians in women, like female musicians, and the outright misogyny. Does anyone have anything to say about that? Because I know I do.
Yeah, no, you're bang on.
I love that. Yeah, bang on. Yeah, even in, so that's like music, in sports, in politics. That, yeah, I see that eye roll, Maryam. I saw that eye roll. I could talk about this for ages. Tell me your thoughts. That eye roll had 1,000 words.
I don't know. When it comes to politics is just a messy, horrible game, isn't it? Especially in the UK. I try not to talk about it because it's so.
That's okay. If you don't want to talk about it.
No, it's fine. We'll talk about representation because that's always important. I think it's a really big topic, especially now that we're trying to find a new prime minister to replace Morris. And a lot of people, you'll hear them say like, "Oh, can I have our first like brown, non-white prime minister? Oh my God, this is so good, representation." But it does make you think: is all representation good representation? And I don't think it is. Honestly, it doesn't matter if he's brown, white, whatever. Whoever's going to be in power is going to be a big factor at the end of the day. At the end of the day. I didn't swear that, I know. So it doesn't matter what colour. Yeah, so I don't think, even if we do get Rishi Sunak, I don't think that's going to help people of colour in any way, shape, or form in this country.
No, definitely.
So, yeah. So, yeah, even though we do have lots of brown people in the cabinet, has that really helped us in any way?
No. Not at all.
I can think of that I do like is Zara Sultan. Always.
Exactly. A South Asian woman.
We love her.
We love that. We really love that.
Yeah, I was just saying that, kind of following on from what Maryam was saying with the whole kind of politics and representation, it can be, this is just my opinion, obviously, disclaimer, that it can be very easy, I think, to get caught up in identity politics and politics of representation. But when you look at kind of what Rishi Sunak or Kemi Badenoch have said in the past, like some of it is very, very harmful, like these big blanket statements that they make. I think it was in 2020 that Kemi Badenoch says there was like no systemic injustice. And these like statements coming from people in power really harm Black and brown people, like on the ground, like everyday working class people, our parents, our friends, our teachers, our loved ones. So as you can tell, I'm not a fan of either of them. But yeah, I think it's just something we have to be really, really careful about when discussing these kind of issues. And I'd like to see more of the representation that I'd call kind of positive representation, which is not just based on what background the person is from, but more kind of what their morals and their values are and the policies that they're proposing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of important to have like a degree of skepticism for sort of people in, I guess, positions of power, politicians, business CEOs and leaders. So it's like, yeah, there's a female CEO, but she's underpaying her workers. And it's very important to have a degree of skepticism for those in positions of power, because we don't really know how they got there. And oftentimes, if they're high up enough, it wasn't through legitimate or moral means. And so I feel like it's quite important, as you said, to sort of judge people based on their morals and their actions, and to sort of, I guess, support people that have not got that much of a platform.
Definitely. Maryam, would you like to respond to that?
I was just thinking about the whole idea of identity politics as well. Like, I was just thinking about, Molly May. She made a statement, I think it was ages ago now, it was a while back, wasn't it? About, what was it? I think it was something to do with like working hard, wasn't it? I can't remember. Do you remember the exact statement?
Yeah, it was the 24-hour. Got what she said.
We all have the same 24 hours or something like that, wasn't it?
That's Beyonce. Wait,
Yeah.
what? Yeah, it was like everyone has the same 24 hours in a day as Beyonce. So if you want to get something done, you can get it done. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I've seen something with Kim Kardashian saying something similar, like, "Oh, no one's prepared to work these days." Like, and it just shows that these women often come from places of incredible privilege. Like, think about Kim Kardashian. She came from, even before she got famous, she came from lots of wealth, lots of money, lots of privilege. And it will often be women, white women, with a lot of privilege who are saying these things. And it's just so harmful, I think, because not everyone has the same 24 hours at all. We all come from different backgrounds and we all have different struggles, different problems that we're facing. And I just think that was so naive and ignorant of Molly to say, especially with how far she's come. You'd expect a bit of understanding, but it just seems that she's very out of touch with everyday people and with her audience. And it's sad to see, because you do see these women, doing great things and like making money, etc., etc. But you realize how truly out of touch they are with their privilege, as well as with everyday people. And it's kind of sad to see, really. And that's why I think we do need to, like Molly said, try and boost people who don't have that much of a platform, who are advocating good things, like I said, good representation. That's what we need. Not all the representation is good.
Exactly. And we also have Priti Patel, who is a prime. Yes, for anyone who's listening, Maryam did another eye roll. Thank you so much for your guys' time. So we've had Maryam, Faustine and Molly on this episode. I appreciate everything immensely. I feel like this was a very important conversation. Thank you guys for listening. If you guys are enjoying this episode on women's rights and feminism, please do make sure to listen to the next episode, which will be focused on environmentalism and climate change.
If you enjoyed this episode of Are You Listening, make sure you subscribe, whether you're on Anchor, Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And also make sure you're following us on social media as well, at Oxfordshire Youth on Instagram and TikTok, and at Ox Youth on Twitter.